First of all, I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy schedules to attend this webinar. We've had some very good feedback on it over the years. And definitely probably the biggest piece of feedback that I get from people is the fact that it doesn't seem like that you can fully grasp or absorb all of the information that Howard relays in this thing in one sitting. So definitely feel free to come back and view it again. We also, just to make you aware of it, have another webinar that is meant for CEU credits for architects and specification community. That website is aiaspec.com. You can go there. It's an on-demand webinar that they can register for and receive any of their continuing education credits. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jason Spangler. I'm the flooring division manager here at Wagner Meters. I'm responsible for not only the concrete side of things and the Rapid RH product line, but I'm responsible for the small line of wood K meters that we have that's used for testing the moisture content of wood subfloors and finished wood products. We're going to do a really brief Q&A. So if you have any questions, please email them to us, and I'll try to get to as many of them as possible. If for some reason there are some questions that come up after the webinar, or if there are some questions that you have about job-specific applications down the road, please don't hesitate to call us. It's what we're here for. My direct number is 800-634-9961, and my direct extension is 235. So without any further ado, one of the questions that I get a lot relates to, the webinar being, or the ASTM process for doing relative humidity testing revolves around getting very depth-specific measurements in the concrete. So in order to get those depth-specific measurements, you have to make calculations based on the thickness of the concrete. So a lot of the questions that I get revolve around, how do I know how thick the concrete is? And I always tell people that the more information you can get, the better off you'll be. Knowledge is power, and so asking those questions is definitely critical. So asking the general contractor, asking the client if you're dealing directly with the end user, the building owner. Sometimes what you'll find is, as you are going to the job site, especially if it's a renovation, you'll see where they've had to trench to move plumbing, things along those lines. So it's a matter of asking questions and a matter of keeping your eyes open. It's amazing once you're of a mindset that you have to know, or that you need to find out how thick something like the concrete is. It's amazing how receptive or perceptive you are to the information that's out there. It's always been there. You just haven't ever had to concentrate on it. In elevated slabs, you'll find that there are, for pipes going through the pan decking or pipes going through the structural, you'll find that they actually have to make the hole bigger than what the pipe is, so you can actually get a profile or a cross section of what that concrete thickness is in those areas. So those are some of the areas like that. When you're dealing with the situation, some of that stuff's not available. What I tell people is that what you'll see out in the field is that there are going to be some people that will take a smaller diameter drill bit, and they will strategically drill a couple of holes in a given slab. And they're doing that so that they can compare this end of the building to that end of the building. Now, when I say a smaller diameter, I'm talking like a 1/4 inch drill bit. You don't need to make a big 3/4 inch drill or drill hole all the way through like you would with if you were installing the Rapid RH, but they'll use a smaller diameter. They'll take a piece of pliable wire and they'll make a J-hook at it. And the J-hook at the opening will be a little bit bigger than what the thickness of the diameter of the hole is, so that when they push it down in the hole, it compresses that wire. As you push it down all the way and it comes out the bottom where the aggregate is on the bottom side, that J will spring out to wider than what the hole is. And as you pull it up, it'll have some resistance. Once you get to that point where there's resistance, you can take a Sharpie and mark off the top of that wire, pull it the rest of the way out, compare where the mark's at to where the radius is on the J at the bottom, and you have a very close proximity of what the overall thickness of that slab is. Comparing both sides, most people think that that's, you're doing your due diligence to be able to have some comparative information. By no means am I saying that people turn the slabs into Swiss cheese. You don't want to put a ton of holes through it, but just to be able to at least do enough due diligence to feel comfortable with the thickness of the concrete. When it comes to elevated slabs, same discussion comes into play, because if you're in a pan deck, the pan deck typically has shallow areas and then thick areas based on wherever the fluting on the pan decking is at. So I have some people that, again, they will drill to identify where that deep portion of the slab is at, because that's what we recommend. Wagner recommends that you install those sensors and calculate your drill depth based on the overall thickness of the deep part of the slab. Now, I'll back up a little bit. The ASTM standard is completely silent on this question of elevated pan decks and do you drill to the shallow area or the deep area. So the direction I'm giving you is what we recommend. Now, you have some people, again, they'll drill and try to identify where that deep section's at. Another way to do it is there's actually a device that you can place on the top of the concrete, and it works off the echo impact principle, and it will send a signal down, and it will actually show you where those different thicknesses are at. It hooks into an iPad or a pad type device, and you have a fairly accurate assessment of the thickness of the slab. The problem, if you want to call it that, is if you don't do a lot of this, the $2,500 price tag that is associated with this device tends to be a little bit steep. The last way that I've heard people try to do it is that they make fairly inexpensive metal detectors that work a lot like stud finders in walls. And so the signal in the metal detector will be strong enough that it will pick up the high points of the metal pan decking, but not so strong that it picks up the low points. So as you put it on the concrete and scan across, it hits the high spot, nothing, scan across, hit the high spot, and you know that between those two marks is where your deep section of the concrete's at. It's not perfect. It can pick up rebar, it can pick up conduit, it can pick up other things that might be in that slab, but for a lot of people, it's a good reference or a starting point. So, looks to be all that I have today. Again, my name is Jason Spangler. Phone number is 800-634-9961, and it's extension 235. Thanks, and have a great day.